This is Land of Havilah, Psalm 12. It's 8 verses. Verse 1. For the chief musician upon an 8-stringed lyre, a psalm of David. Help, Yahweh, for the godly man ceases, for the faithful fail from among the children of men. Everyone lies to his neighbor. They speak with flattering lips and with a double heart. May Yahweh cut off all flattering lips and the tongue that boasts, who have said, with our tongue we will prevail. Our lips are our own. Who's Lord over us? Because of the oppression of the weak and because of the groaning of the needy, I will now arise, says Yahweh. I will set him in safety from those who malign him. Yahweh's words are flawless words, as silver refined in a clay furnace, purified 7 times. You will keep them, Yahweh. You will preserve them from this generation forever. The wicked walk on every side when what is vile is exalted among the sons of men. Comment in verse 1, it's a psalm of David. He says, the faithful fail from among the children of men, meaning there aren't any faithful left. It's probably a poetic exaggeration and overly pessimistic that the righteous have disappeared. Elijah said he was the only one left, but God told him he had reserved 7,000 men in the land who hadn't corrupted themselves, 1 Kings 19:18. So the righteous aren't as alone as they might think they are. In verse 3, everyone lies and speaks flattery with a double heart. Kings have to deal with a lot of flattery, but mostly they enjoy it. Take, for example, the original King James Version of the Bible. King James commissioned a group of Greek and Hebrew scholars to produce that Bible, and in the preamble of it, the translators went on and on flattering the king. They said his commissioning of the work showed he had singular wisdom from God, that he had attained rare learning and experience, that his royal heart was not daunted or discouraged, that he stood resolute and immovable, that the course he intended was for the glory of God, that he promoted religion zealously and to the uttermost of his power, and so forth. On the surface of it, it was praise, but beneath it the translator's motive was to stroke King James' ego for their own safety. But David despised flattery. In verse 3 he said, May Yahweh cut off all flattering lips. It's a good mindset for any of us that we should hate flattery. Flattery is intentionally deceptive. If we believe it, we can make some very bad decisions. The flatterer is trying to get something. We should be sure not to fall for it. In verse 3, may Yahweh cut off boastful lips, boastings to be despised as well. In verses 4 and 5, boasting oppresses the weak. It inflates the one speaking it and deflates the one hearing it. Because of it, in verse 5, Yahweh will arise to protect the weak and needy from those who malign them. In verse 6, Yahweh's words are flawless words, as silver refined in a clay furnace, purified 7 times. It's one of the many statements in the Bible pertaining to the perfection of the Word of God. There's no flaw in it. In verse 7, speaking of Yahweh's Word, Yahweh will keep it and preserve it throughout the generations forever. Quote, you will keep them, Yahweh, you will preserve them from this generation forever. End quote. It's a promise to keep His flawless words intact and without corruption forever. Quote, the word of our God endures forever. Isaiah 40, verse 8. Indeed, today when we compare the modern Bible to the Dead Sea Scrolls from over 2,000 years ago, the text is still the same, except for some very minor differences here and there that we can attribute to honest mistakes in copying. There's been no intentional corruption of it, and no corruption whatsoever that even comes close to changing any significant idea of it. In verse 8, the wicked walk on every side when what is vile is exalted among the sons of men. It's interesting David noticed that, because we notice it very much today that men exalt what is vile. Men pass their corruption from person to person like a virus, eagerly. Therefore, corruption spreads throughout society until the wicked walk on every side, until we're surrounded by wickedness. And the spreading of it's greatly accelerated by the media. So we shouldn't exalt what's vile. Rather, we should recognize in the 2 previous verses that the Word of God's pure and incorruptible, and pass that around eagerly. The Word of God's the antidote to the vile corruption that the wicked pass around so eagerly. Psalm 13 is next.